I'd like to introduce Laura Ball, who is a contestant at the Advantage Testing Foundation Math Prize for Girls back in 2010. And she traveled by bus from Williams College in Western Massachusetts to help us out as an alumni volunteer last year. And this year, she's traveled even further from a neuroscience lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in order to be part of this marvelous event. Laura is an outstanding example of the slogan, "Do math and you can do anything," promoted by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. She's won recognition across the board for her work in history, writing, music, Spanish, as well as in math. As a servant of the public good, Laura has toiled in many different fields, literally and figuratively. Her volunteer experiences include tutoring inner-city students in Milwaukee, assisting a state Supreme Court judge's re-election campaign, working and living for a month at an organic farm in northern Ohio, and registering Spanish-speaking voters in Milwaukee during the 2008 presidential campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, Math Prize alumna and veteran volunteer, Miss Laura Ball.
My older sister majored in art history, and while we were growing up, she had a hard time understanding why I went to events like this, why anyone would choose to do math in their free time. She would find it very difficult to care, for instance, what the least positive integer n, what the least positive integer was, and such that, and I'm trying to quote a problem from the test. What is the least positive integer n such that n factorial is a multiple of 2012 to the 2012 power? A solution to that question might feel pretty to sensibilities like yours or mine, but you know, it's not tangible. How could it be important in any ultimate sense? 2 months ago, the New York Times published an editorial challenging whether it's even worthwhile to keep teaching algebra in American schools. And if you only conceive of algebra as a set of handsomely contrived conclusions in an abstract fantasy realm, it's not hard to see their point. You know, why should students struggle to master this hard stuff if in the end it's only, you know, for the appreciation of something pretty, something aesthetically gratifying? I would answer that considering mathematical objects in isolation like that is not a fair or natural way of assessing what happened here today, what the girls did on the test. Let me tell you a story. In 1885, the great heads of Europe sat down at a conference in Berlin and mapped out who would get to colonize which parts of Africa. Some of the boundaries they came up with were, you know, seemingly arbitrary. Some of them were vaguely based on the geography of the region, you know, following mountains and rivers and such. But none of them took into account the people who were living on that land. And so they ended up with these border lines that ran, you know, right through the middle of a tribe's living space, or that grouped two warring tribes together on the same very small piece of land. And it was a convenient arrangement for bureaucrats in Europe to be able to look at a map of Africa parceled up, you know, with France and Belgium and Britain, you know, sections well defined. But it was a totally artificial way of characterizing the contents of that land, and it made things really tough for them as they set about trying to make sense of and improve this continent that they'd discovered. Sometimes I'm afraid that modern education has divided up the human experience in a similarly artificial manner. We've separated our learning experiences into math and history and biology, but nothing in the real world, no object, no transaction, no problem that you can name reduces comfortably to a single one of those categories. Take anything. Take, I don't know, the cup of coffee I had for breakfast this morning. Obviously, it's chemical. It was also biological in origin. It was psychological as a stimulus that I administered to my nervous system. It was historical as the culmination of a trend in the Western bourgeoisie that inspired J.S. Bach to write his famous coffee cantata. It was literary, as employed by Jean-Luc Godard as a symbol of the swirling cosmos. But that cup of coffee is also math, through chemistry as a ratio of parts, through physics as a reflection of light wavelengths within a specific nanometer range, and through analytic geometry as the mass of the liquid formed the frustum of a cone shifting continuously in response to the container. I mean, maybe nothing that I say could really capture that cup of coffee entirely, but I could describe it to you as well and as truly with equations as I could with words. And I maintain that I gain power over objects, like my coffee, through my ability to understand them in those other mathematical ways. It is a power that a lot of girls, like my sister, will probably never have. So, math is not just a showy piece of mental acrobatics or a way of showing your personal intellectual supremacy at events like this, or a world of perfect consistent forms for you to escape into like a good novel. Math is a methodology for making sense of the universe and for improving what you find. And so I honor you for being here, not because I'm impressed that you beat a certain AMC cutoff score to qualify, but simply because I imagine that the world would be a better place if more people did math and taught math, and specifically if more girls felt empowered to think about math in the way that you have today. When you walk out of here this afternoon, I hope you look at the bridge over the Charles River and see it in terms of great gleaming cycloids that dance before your eyes. I hope that you step into the sunlight and feel the joules per square meter wash over your skin. I hope that you turn to the girls around you and that you look into the concentric circles of their eyes and behold in them your future colleagues and allies. I hope that you feel today the heuristically infinite breadth of the tree diagram of life fanning out before you, and whatever major you choose, whatever causes you pursue hereafter, I hope you feel inspired to approach them with a mathematical mind. Thank you.